Hello. Okay, so this episode is going to be all about money and how money mindset kind of shapes our marketing and different stories we tell ourselves and some of the important parts of really understanding how these beliefs are getting in the way of your own value that you're setting up for yourself as a creative business owner is what today's episode is going to be all about. So a lot of times when I ask like on Instagram, I say like, does anyone have any questions? Do they have anything they're struggling with? Raising prices is a common one. And often people want me to help them decide what their prices are going to be. But I don't really do that. I try to be very careful not to do that because it should be tied directly to the amount of money that you need. And in the membership, on Monday, we're going to be starting fall goal setting. And I'm really going to encourage the members to actually choose specific income goals for each month and then an overall income goal for each season. Because I feel like what has happened in our industry, and I've touched on this before, this idea of like the most coveted family photographer in the eyes of other family photographers may be just the photographer who is the most creative or who's the best at social media or who's the best at, sort of like coming up with like being a trendsetter. That would be like the person placed on the highest pedestal. And while I think that's awesome, and I think it's great, there's also, balancing the reality of actually making an income from this job. And I was trying to find stats for this episode about how many business owners make above even $80,000 a year, how many women creative business owners make over $80,000 a year. And it was a very small number. I don't want to give an exact number because I couldn't find a stat. It was if you've ever tried to find stats for things, I got into the source of the source of the source of the source was all different blog posts that other people had written, but I couldn't get an actual like source from a study or a government census or anything that gave the idea of this number, but I couldn't find much that said that women creative business owners were very many more than 5% of them were making more than $80,000 a year. And I know, and I've always been clear about this, that there's many photographers who do not need the money. And I think that is A, totally fine. And also B, can be really confusing because you could have model call after model call of the coolest, most beautiful model family that keep showing up and willing to do fun, like super fun activities with you, because it's your idea as the creative and there's no money exchanging hands, and then present that as a successful business. When in reality, that is not what a successful business, in my having looked at like 150 family photography businesses, really gotten down to the nitty gritty, that is not what I see. That person is actually very rare. A person who is extremely trendy, who's on the edge of every trend, who can convince people to pay them full session price to go do something that is unlike what they have in their portfolio. That's a very rare person. But yet it's like the coveted thing. So the reason that I want my members to be operating with those numbers in mind is this one thing. So when women hit financial goals, so many amazing things happen in their world that is not often true for men. And if you're a man and you're listening to this, then like, don't take offense. But often women who have excess money, give back more to their communities. They fund things for their communities. They're more likely to become a tide that rises all boats, as opposed to just taking the money that they make and putting it only into their own family, which is totally fine as well. But I have this sort of idea of a group of women entrepreneurs, creative women entrepreneurs, actually making their financial goals is a powerful force in the world. And oftentimes as a solo creative business owner, everything feels, me, it's all about me. But if you think about that group of people as a cohort, that's pretty powerful. So I just want to talk about this, and I know that it can be uncomfortable to talk about. And I remember when I was kind of going through why I viewed money the way I do, or how I think about it, or how it affects me, it can be a little bit grating because it often goes back to things that happened in your childhood, the way that your parents talked about people with money or people without money, the way that you think about having money or not having money, all of that can drudge up a lot of stuff. So I want to be aware of that. But these are the sort of things, how it's tied to marketing is that if you have a story about money where you believe that asking for high session fees, or even not even high, but enough that you do not feel resentful when you're sending out invoices, which is my baseline, whether that be $10,000 or $500, if you believe that money is greedy, shameful, scarce, hard to earn, then you will sabotage yourself in terms of reaching that opportunity to send invoices and feel really good about it. So if you're never talking about pricing, or you're discounting preemptively because you're assuming that people aren't going to pay what you have set, or you're spending hours and hours and hours tweaking the back end of your brand, but not partaking in activities that could lead to people actually booking sessions, which often means you're putting your sessions out there and asking for people to take a look at them. And when they take a look at them, you know they're also going to be looking at the price. And then you're sort of like spinning your wheels in all of this judgment. So not only are you judging the Sally down the street who's doing pay what you can sessions, you're also judging Veronica up the street who's charging $10,000 for pet portraits. So there's all sorts of judgments swirling around, and none of it is really serving you. So we're going to go through kind of the 5 most common money mindset blocks. And this has to do with us because we are business owners. And I mean, sometimes that whole side of the business, I wish I didn't really have to think about, because that's why I feel like for me, and this is probably something that I should examine myself, but like my model calls have to be no cost, or else I get all confused with them. And that probably doesn't make sense, or maybe not make sense to a lot of people, but I want it to be completely free of a monetary transaction so that I don't have any feelings of client serving with that process. So like that's an example of a way that my views of money are affecting how I run my business. And you probably have a lot of those as well. So the first one is I'm not worth charging that much, which leads to underpricing, over delivery, burnout. And the marketing impact of that is you position yourself as the budget option instead of the trusted expert. So the ideal thing would instead be you are the expert because you're the expert of your own brand. You're the expert of Catherine James photography. There is no one who is more of an expert than Catherine James. Even if someone went to film school, even if someone photographed a royal wedding, even if somebody photographed a celebrity family, they're not more of an expert of that person's photography business than you. Okay, number 2 is that people can't afford me. So then you start to subconsciously project your fears like back out onto your audience, which means the marketing impact is you hold down your offers, you like don't talk about them, or you water them down. You're like, oh, I'll just keep it simple. I'll keep giving more for less. And then you try to justify everything by giving extras. And then of course you feel resentful when you send the invoice because you know that you're just making assumptions about people. Number 3 is that you don't want to be salesy. And I hear this all the time. This is the challenge of like, how do we market these businesses without feeling salesy? And like at the end of the day, every time someone books a session with you, that is also the exact identical language is that you made a sale. So the faster you can just sort of get over it and not worry about it anymore, the easier it'll be for you to think about it that way. But there's this belief that when you are selling or you're talking about benefits or features or anything like that you're being manipulative. I'll say that with a weird accent that my brain wanted to do. So because you're talking about what you have to offer as a creator does not mean that you're manipulating anyone. So the marketing impact of that belief is that then there is no call to action. There's no repetitive nature to your marketing. There's no urgency and there's no confidence, because any of those things in your brain, you believe that makes you a manipulator, when that doesn't. That makes you clear. That makes you confident. That makes you someone that people are able to build trust with. The 4th is I have to overgive to deserve money. So you pack every session with extras, you give away your time, you run yourself ragged, you do whatever you can. You think you're doing a solid customer service by going above and beyond. And the marketing impact of that is that you're actually speaking about it in terms of quantity instead of transformation. So you're teaching people to look for your sessions as a quantitative based service that they just need to tap into and buy one of, instead of selling them on the transformation of how you're going to take what they want, which is family photography, and then whatever it is that you're selling, and showcasing that you can give them that. The fifth one is money will make you a different person. So I had this a lot in the beginning because my husband's a firefighter. We're very much, even though because we live in such a high cost of living area, I still consider us very like middle class, but it was difficult for me to keep upping my prices to the point where a lot of the firefighter families no longer hired me, and they'd say like, we can't hire you because you're not in our budget. Now, do I have firefighter families that have stuck with me all this time? Yes. And they just value my art and what I do. And so they have saved or whatever. And assuming that people don't have money is always also a huge issue, because as someone who has a lot of open conversations about money, there's a lot of people with access to money that you may not even be aware of. So that's why it's really good to never assume. But I did feel this kind of like pricing myself out of my own income bracket was a weird place to be in. And when I let that really rule in my head, the marketing impact for me was I stayed as small and invisible and safe as I could, because like the thought of other people that were in that firefighter community learning that I had gone up to $1,000 a session, I felt really embarrassed about that. But it really had nothing to do with them. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because I don't want to serve that mindset and then feel resentful. So you have to decide what the trade-off is. So the ripple effects on marketing. Your audience can sense when you're uncomfortable with your prices. Potential clients can sense that as well. You do a lot of over-explaining. You come at it from this point of like you're a desperation to sell them on the value, and saying like, I know that price may seem high, but I'll add in XYZ. If you have that sort of language, that affects your marketing. So this can show up in these places. You could, if you were to read back through and notice this, you could see it in your Instagram captions. You could see it in your email replies. You could see it in the way you talk about mini sessions would be a big one. You could say, here's how to book, here's all the info. If you're interested, I hope it's not like you're doing all of this gauging of whether or not you're worthy of this money. So that sort of language cuts into potential clients' trust with you, because they don't want to be like, well, what do you mean it might not be worth my time? Like, we don't want that to come across at all. So signs your marketing problem is actually a mindset would be this, is actually a mindset problem would be this. You avoid checking your statistics in terms of how many people inquired with you and how many people booked with you. Like if you are terrified to even understand what that number is, you may actually have a mindset problem, not a marketing problem. If you freeze up every time that you are going to post in any capacity about pricing, mindset problem, and not necessarily a marketing problem. Another one, this is so common, that you continually rebrand instead of just building trust with your current business practice, whatever that looks like. So instead of being like, okay, I'm going to charge $1,000 is a good like round number. I'm going to charge $1,000 for a 1 hour family session, instead of just swinging the whole maneuvering of your business behind that number and building out a really high trust website and just being in that place. You'll keep tweaking your branding and your website and your logo and your headshots, because you think you can tweak to where you can feel comfortable behind that $1,000 price tag. And that's not to say, like, I talk all the time about a high trust website and the importance and all of those things. But these little elements, I feel like we get stuck over here in the sandbox of branding when we could decide we're just going to make a simple high trust website and stand behind our prices. So we're going to do a little rewriting of the script in terms of mindset shifts and marketing shifts, how we think about it, how it ends up in our marketing. So the limiting belief is I'm too expensive. A limiting belief is like the belief that makes you feel smaller, okay? So the limiting belief is I'm too expensive. The new story you want to tell is the right clients value what I do. So the marketing shift that corresponds to this new story is speak directly to the people who hire you for ideal sessions, speak directly to their desires, not your insecurities. Second limiting belief is I shouldn't talk about money. That's like a very common one. People are very uncomfortable. The new story is I run a business, not a hobby. And facts and figures are just part of that story. So you can get unemotional about it. The marketing shift is you're sharing pricing confidently and it's not an apology. Number 3, limiting belief, people won't pay for this. The new story is some people won't, and that's okay. Like, what are you going to do? Go up to someone and be like, you have to pay it. Like, you can't control that. So we're going to stop trying. The marketing shift that corresponds is focus on the few people who will pay it instead of hyper focusing on the people that won't. And at the end of the day, like Seattle has 300,000 people that live here. I don't even know if that's true. That was the last time I looked. And I only need about 100 of them. So it's not a ton of people. You know, you don't need everyone in your city to see your value. Number 5 is I have to earn every penny with maximum effort. Like if it wasn't hard and felt like I got hit by a bus, then it's not worth the money. And the new thought is I can earn the money with ease through systems and processes. So when you have systems in place, like for me, if I have $1,000 family session, people can book online without ever talking to me, end up on the calendar, I send them the signing resources, we do the session. It goes very well because they're very well versed on what type of session I'm best with, what type of client, that sort of thing. And then I deliver their gallery and everyone's happy. There's no misalignment really showing up there, and it's certainly not difficult. So just because you're at higher prices doesn't mean it has to be difficult. So the marketing shift for that is utilizing sales strategy and marketing strategy, not just posting willy-nilly. You don't have to have it be that you have to reinvent the wheel every time you want to market. You know how many sessions you want to reach your financial goal each season, and then you're working backwards from that. That's what we're going to be working on in the marketing membership for fall. The last one is the limiting belief is I need to prove my value, right? Like I need to show you, and this is like, there are ways to showcase your positive client experience without it translating to you proving your value to people. So the new story is my work speaks for itself. My systems, my booking process speaks for itself. My show, whatever I've showcased on my website, all of that supports the fact that my work is worth the price tag, right? The marketing shift that goes along with that is you have testimonials and storytelling do the heavy lifting. So you're not talking like these posts I see, and I'm so sorry if you've someone who've shared one of these where you try to like break down exactly how expensive it is to run a photography business. No one cares. No one cares. They do not care. Spend your time and effort just talking about transformations that you've helped clients obtain instead of saying like, well, my camera body cost $1,000. Do not care. When I go get a cake, I don't care how much the ingredients cost, and I never will. It's not even something that I want to think about. I just want the finished product, and I chose X baker because of the cake that I saw them do for my friend or the cake that I saw them do on their social media, and I want that cake as well, right? That's all that it is. Okay, so the next part is to do some experiments to kind of start to heal your money mindset. So here are some things you can try. Share your prices in a post without any apologetic language. Practice saying your rates out loud with a friend or to the mirror. Write a journal entry about a money belief that you may that may be holding you back. So here's an example of one that I remember. I once went to a little workshop on money mindset, and this girl who was sitting next to me, she was remembering this really powerful thing that her dad used to do, where they would like drive through neighborhoods of nice houses, and he would say like, the reason and there's a lot of flaws in this, so this is just an example of a money mindset. And he would say, the reason that I push you so hard in school, the reason that, you have a tutor, the reason that all these things are hard is because I want you to have the opportunity to live in a place like this, because they lived in a place that's not like that. And I feel like we see stories very similar to that represented in movies. So that story can have offshoots that are both positive and negative, right? You could have idea that if you don't live in a house like that, then you're not successful, right? That could be really negative. It could also give this idea that like anything that anyone else has is potentially obtainable, which could be positive and self-driving. So just examining some of those stories are really important. Track your wins each week. Start to track who booked, who inquired, and what worked in that process. Being afraid of the data is a really clear indicator that you have an issue. So my last actual job I had before being a family photographer, I was a financial counselor, which meant that people would come in pre-bankruptcy and we would see if we could get them into like some sort of credit counseling arrangement where all their cards would be closed, and then they would just pay one payment to the credit counseling agency, and then they could help their credit, right? There was the whole industry. There was the industry that the business part that I was in was fairly good. There was definitely predatory parts about it, but there's also many predatory industries that are very similar to that. But one thing that I noticed is that the vast majority of people that I counseled on the phone had gone weeks, months, even years without ever opening their credit card statements, because it was like they didn't want to face it. And that can be true for us too with the way that we think about money. So another experiment is to post a bold call to action. Like, here's how to book. I'd love to work with you, and put the price right there. If you're someone who puts a website, if you're someone who puts the price on your website, test out, do an experiment of your mind to see if you could create a story that has the price included. And I'm not talking about minis where you feel like you're doing it almost for the low price. I'm talking about a full session where you would not feel any resentment sending out the invoice. Practice doing that. Okay, I talked about this a ton on our Monday morning planning call in the community of really unfollowing or muting accounts that trigger comparison or scarcity. So that's true too when it comes to making you feel financially insecure. And all you need to do is look a few posts into Instagram and you'll likely see someone who has a beautiful house or, a car that you like or whatever. And it can sort of turn you into this comparison monster. So make sure that you're paying attention to those things and muting or unfollowing anything that's hurting you while you try to heal this mindset. So after you heal it, after you've worked on it, what happens is the money noise starts to quiet down and your energy shifts to where you get excited about building a high trust business behind the number that you can send out an invoice without resentment. You stop over-explaining, over-giving, and undercharging. You start to focus on clarity, consistency, and connecting with potential clients because you're not so worried about explaining to them why it's going to be worth it. And then your marketing in turn becomes about helping and not proving your worth every time. You trust your offers of what you're offering for photography, whether that be mini sessions, half sessions, full sessions, whatever, you trust them. And so other people, potential clients, they start to trust them as well. The resulting thing with your messaging is it becomes cleaner and more confident. And when you show up, you're not afraid of being judged, and clients can feel that confidence coming through. Think about this idea. I love this. I wrote this down from this marketing book I was reading. The main goal is a high trust, confident, and grounded brand. That brand that is like, here's what I offer. My client experience is amazing. I'll support you all the way through. We're going to shoot it this time so you get light like you fell in love with in my portfolio. I'm going to help you style. The price just becomes almost like the least interesting thing about it, right? So your brand becomes magnetic, not desperate to prove its worth. You're able to make decisions from strategy instead of fear. So that would be where we want you to be. That would be where we want the brand to go. So if you have said any one of these 5 things, you probably are stuck. I'm not worth it. People won't pay that. I don't want to sell. I have to overgive to earn, and making money will change me. Those are like very clear indicators that you have some work to do. So you're not behind or broken or anything if you're struggling with this. I would say that 99% of creative business owners struggle in this department. Pricing is really tough. And I was just explaining that, I was looking at my own stats, right? Because I want to know, what are people actually booking. So for my offers, I have local sessions, midway adventure, which are like not in my town, but more like some of the more beautiful places that are usually like an hour or so away from me. And then I have my mountain shoots, right? So this year, the majority of bookings have been at the midway price point. But the midway price point for me, I notice as I'm sending out invoices, sometimes I'm spending too much time getting to and from those places, to the point where I am starting to feel that little bit of resentment when I'm sending them. So I know that in order to keep myself going, I need to pay attention to that and up my prices. And it doesn't need to be overly explained, and I don't need to feel weird about it. It just is what needs to happen so that I can continue being a photographer. So much of marketing, people think like, oh, I just need, this is a huge thing. Like, people in the marketing membership love the idea thread that I send out every Sunday, because it has 5 reel ideas, 5 carousel post ideas, 4 example reels where I actually find actual reels that people have done and talk about how we could incorporate it into a family photography business. I have series ideas. I have captions ideas. There's like so many ideas, which is what I want, because I don't want someone to say, well, I don't know what to say. But there's also the belief behind what you say. So there's the thing that you say, and then it's, do you actually believe it yourself? Are you actually excited to build this business? Do you feel the power of your own convictions behind your artistry and having people purchase sessions from you? Okay, so I know that this was kind of a different type of episode, because we're not talking about something completely directed with marketing, but I feel like money is so important, and I do want us all to talk about it, because I also feel like it toes the line of like a feminine masculine thing, where a lot of wedding photographer men, I see their ads all the time, especially educators, and the vast majority of their ads, when they're trying to get people into their programs or to learn from them, are almost 100% about building $100,000 business, building a 6-figure business. I just saw one from this wedding photographer who teaches Facebook ads, and it was like, I booked $95,000 worth of weddings off of 20 Facebook ads or whatever. Like, I don't want it to become like that, but I do want us to be able to say, like, I am a creative business owner. I hit my income goal. I contributed to my family, to my community, and all of that noise affects the way that you show up in your marketing. So that is why it is absolutely so important to address it. Okay, so the second part of this episode is going to be a little 15-day mini marketing challenge for summer. So I called it the Summer Visibility Sprint. So it's just 15 things. Did I write 15 things here? 10 things. Sorry. 10 things that you can do to kind of help your visibility for summer. So the first one is a blog post. Write or refresh one blog post targeting summer. So many family photographers don't have anything about summer on their website at all. There's like a ton of spring centered stuff, and then there's a ton of fall stuff. So write a summer blog post. The second thing is to check your Instagram bio to see if it is optimized for last minute summer bookings. Third is local SEO. Add on a location specific keyword or something specific to do with summer that has to do with local SEO on your site. So that could be like, you're going through your town and you're touring the best places to have a summer treat, or the best, like planning a summer date night, and you're talking about summer in your actual local town. So share a summer related client magnet post. A client magnet post would be something like this. Working with me is like So you're really telling people what the experience looks like. Number 5 is Google Business. Add 5 summer images to your Google Business profile. Pinterest Push. Add 5 pieces of Pinterest content that are summer related to Pinterest. Number 7 is a summer reel. Create a quick reel answering questions that clients may have about working with you in summer. I want you all, as number 8, to do a website walkthrough to make sure that summer is mentioned and visible on your homepage. Number 9 is a referral reminder, which would be a challenge to reach out to 2 past clients, ideally people who'd worked with you in spring or summer before, to see if they needed a session this season. And then number 10 is double check all of your booking links and make sure they're clear. So as you're adding more sessions, you want, especially that last one, you want it to be done before you start releasing fall dates, which if you haven't done already, I feel like you should do. So if you were to complete this 10-part summer visibility sprint, and in addition, at the same time, be releasing your fall dates, I feel like that would be a really good place to be marketing-wise as a family photographer in the Northern Hemisphere. Obviously, if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, you're in a different season. So, inside the membership, we're planning goal setting on the 30th, on Monday. That's coming up in just a few days. So feel free to join. It's $35 a month. Literally my favorite thing that I've ever done. I love teaching in there so much. And we're going to be talking about what I'm trying to do is make sure that everyone has the ability to get their fall booked early so that when fall comes around with all those eyes that are on everyone's businesses, we can start talking about some of the offerings that people have in 2026 so that when the busy fall season ends, people have bookings in 2026 to look forward to instead of a completely blank slate. So that's something that as a cohort, as a whole group, we are going to be doing. So feel free to join. I would love to have you. We're going to have Monday marketing planning followed by goal setting for fall. And I hope this episode was helpful, and I will talk to you guys soon.